Hey, Doreet. I can't seem to add us to the stage.
Well, I think we're on. So just having a few
I'm just trying to get our video up and running.
Yeah. So for the viewers or whoever is here, we're just having a few technical problems. Just bear with us. Hopefully we can get it.
Here's Doreet. Maybe she can help.
Great.
Hi, Doreet. Doreet, your microphone is off. We are having some technical difficulties, so everybody bear with us as we try to get us on camera. We're going to have an exciting discussion today on how you can essentially not know life until you get connected to death. And so while I'm trying to get all of us on screen, if somebody would like to speak to that, Sabina, what do you have to say on that topic?
On death? Well, let's say I faced death a few times in my life. I was in situations where I could have lost my life. And that actually made me realize that, wow, life is so precious and it could end in an instant and we have no control how long we're going to be here. So why not enjoy it fully in every single moment? I mean, I remember one time I was driving my car in the snow and happened to be ice on the driveway. And all of a sudden, I completely lost control. I just felt my car sliding off to the side. There was an abyss. And I tried to move the steering wheel. Nothing was working. I moved towards the abyss. And I was like, okay, all I can do right now is to pray, because I know it's not time for me to go yet. I have still so much accomplished in this world. And I just trusted that I will be guided. And when I got to just where the abyss was, somehow the car was able to move to the left side. So I ended up in the ditch on the other side, but better in the ditch than down the abyss. And gracefully, a man came by who pulled me out of the ditch. And the car was just mildly damaged. And I was in good condition, but I cried in the car because I really saw myself going down the ditch, going down the abyss. Really, really steep. But then I just reframed, said, it's not time to go yet. I'm asking for a miracle. And the miracle was received. And this was not the only time, just one example I wanted to mention, that life sometimes could shift in an instant. Okay. And we're here to really enjoy every single moment because life is so precious. And we're all here to make a difference. We're not here to suffer or simply to get by. We're here to share our light and to share our gift. And every single one has a unique gift. I mean, everyone has something that no one else has the same gift. So if you haven't found your gift yet, this is really an opportunity to look, what are my talents? What are my skills? What are the experience I could share? What can I provide to someone else that they could benefit from? And when you really tap into your gift and really live fully, life really changes. We really got to wake up in the morning excited about life. And it's not just about getting by or surviving or just living mediocrity. It's about living fully. And when we face death, it really, makes you aware how fast it can be over. So why spend all that time whining and complaining and wishing, hopefully, maybe next year it's going to get better. One day I retire. Finally, I can be free. When I find the perfect partner, I can finally be happy. These are all stories that take us out of the present moment. When in fact, it can be over tomorrow. Why not live today to its fullest and share all that you have to share and enjoy everything? Enjoy the connections with others. Enjoy the beauty of nature. Enjoy just to breathe and to walk and to smile and to connect. There's so much to enjoy, but most people are sadly thinking about what is missing, what they don't have, and hoping one day, wishing sometimes in the future it will be different, and they miss out on the moment. And death really gets you back to what really matters and how valuable and how precious life is.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. that connection to death. How are you looking at your world now from that lens in the present moment?
Like, I look at everything with gratitude. I'm just grateful every morning. I'm alive. I'm breathing. I'm walking. I'm healthy. I might not have all that I'm dreaming of, but I'm tuning in what I actually really do have, and focus on that I actually have a lot, and being grateful for what I have, because when we focus on gratitude, we're actually living in that frequency of, living abundance, living gratitude, and then life will bring us more things to be grateful for. That's how it works. But if you focus on lack and limitation, we will receive more lack and limitation down the pipeline. So why not focusing on what we actually have? And when you really look, there's a lot to be grateful for. Even those who might think, oh, I don't have enough of this, look what you actually have. And simply going outside, looking at the sky, looking at the sun, looking at this beautiful fireball, looking at the flowers, looking at the beautiful trees and all that's growing right now, there's so much abundance, so much available, and focus on that, what's actually right here, instead of wishing, hoping. So living from gratitude, really enjoying every moment. And when I don't feel so good, to remind myself what I actually really have. And I'm not serving anyone. If I'm sitting here, I don't have this, I wish I had that. You can't serve the world with that. So it's about, okay, what do I have here to offer? And focus on that every single day, beaming out the light, sharing from a place of gratitude and abundance.
It's so beautiful, Sabina, what you shared, and to have that experience and to be able to look at the world from those fresh eyes, that essential truth that really we're not guaranteed another minute. This is an epic journey that we've been given. And I think a lot of times we think we're just going to live forever, and it's just I think so many people are afraid to really look at the fact that this is temporary. And we are blessed with yet another breath, right? And how about what comes up for you, Pete, in this discussion? Pete?
Hang on a sec.
You're unmuted. You were.
How about now? Okay. Didn't hear you very well. Can you hear me okay? Okay.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, maybe there's a little bit of a delay. Oh, I mean, thank you, Sabrina. That's a beautiful what you mentioned, very encompassing, lots of realistic and becomes obvious ways of being in life. It's so true. Sometimes when, as you've mentioned, when you're really in the thick of it, and if you haven't got other people, I'm not sure if you can still hear me. Okay.
We can hear you, we just can't see you.
Okay, I'll carry on. So yeah, you've
been transported into the dark.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, what I realize is it's good to have supportive people around you. Sometimes you can break through on your own because, you might have more of an innate connection. But if you are around lots of people who are just, let's just say, feeding into the program of the mourning about and the holding on to the pain and the suffering, then that's all you become aware of. And to be honest, that was in my conditioning, in my history, should I say. So I had to break through that and follow my own instincts, because all the people dying so young, it just didn't feel right. And with these labels and names, it just didn't feel right. And so yeah, when I was about 17, I had a friend's mother's sister die. And that was the first death really that was in my consciousness. And I did meet her for over a few weeks and was driving them around and stuff like that. She came from over from Mexico, apparently. But so yeah, I remember, in tears that evening because I hadn't really experienced a loss. So that was close. And then, 2 years later, we lost our first child. Partner went 9 months. So it really gets you to, them experiences really got me to open my eyes. I think from experiences, obviously they're objective to us, but really got me to appreciate children. So really, I was on a next level of appreciating myself, life, children, and then I can look back on life and keep going through different levels and layers and stages. And then I think 9 years later, my elder sister died. So I was around 28, she was around 35, and left 2 children as well, should I say left. So that was a massive experience because you really feel the energetic connection more so. Not saying I didn't experience that with our first child, but there was such a deeper connection. And I had all these dreams, in terms of like we were rays, and there was 5 rays left, and she was a 6th ray that went back or went off. And so my experience from my older sister passing was so amazing. It went through the tears, went through certain experiences, and then I'm feeling so high and so, overwhelmed of joy. But because I had done some work when I was 17, these sort of more esoteric groups on dreams, I could connect more with my dreams and could weed out the nonsense. So it was showing me that she hadn't really passed, and she was showing me that energetically. So when we say we miss them, to me, they're around. If you can connect a little bit more deeper with your subconscious or whatever we want to call it, and then you are, I can just think of her now, and I don't pine, my sister, because she literally showed me in a few dreams, is me talking here, that she's fine. And we had I'm going to say truthversation about many things. And then years went on, and I think another 15 years, and then my mum passed, and then my other sister passed. And I had exactly the same experiences. So when I was 28, 29, having that experience with my elder sister, so people would talk about death, and I would be straight away coming in with such a joy energy, which I realized I had to dampen down. So you start recognizing how it can inhibit each other, the pressure of each other, and however, I managed to keep that seed. But what I did find is, because, everyone expects empathy, compassion, which is needed. However, not to stay there, not to stay in that reality, it's, so I've took people through many experiences of mine, took them through experiences of when their mum might have been passing, different auspicious times people have visited, and one of their close family are passing. So I'd share them this experience. And, the classic is people either get stoned, get drunk, etc., because they can't deal with the lost, can't deal with what's coming up, which is just a mirror of our own inner, I'm going to say, trauma or unacceptance in life. So it has been amazing for me. There's a saying, I think in the Buddhists, it's like we take our first breath and we die. Now that really resonates too, On another level, I could look around and who is really in life, So that was the whole food journey around 18 years and 19 years ago, and other protocols to get my system back alive, So also, and connect deeper with myself. So I'm not projecting onto my sister or my partner or my children too much. So I know who I am, and they're unique individuals as well. So there's not a loss because, I'm not in a codependency scenario depending on anyone else. So I've, managed to get back connected more with myself. And of course, I accept with whatever emotion's going to come up, you know. Not going to say I'm resolved or sorted, but my main thing is, as Sabina says, is if you go in it, come out of it. I know whatever comes my way. You know, tornado could be coming now. Well, I'm going to still sit here, relax, and talk to you guys. If I go when I go, you know. And so, you know, I think that's the beauty of doing work on yourself, and the food journey, which is a big part of it, to get our nervous system more regulated. And then through that journey, you get to look at a lot of your shocks and traumas, and then recognizing why we are in flight or flight. So it's been really beautiful to embrace, I would say, the more life and death. And we just had a new child about literally 4 weeks today, strengths today. So life and death, you know, it's really a beautiful, interesting topic. And if I have not resolved a lot of my issues, then in our energy field, we're going to attract certain problems, or there's going to be more problems, I'm going to say, in birth and around death. So the more we don't have any of that nonsense in our field, then really we're not going to be self-fulfilling prophesizing a certain story that we have not really give attention and resolve in ourselves. So we're just very magnets in life. So the death thing is a really interesting topic. You know, on some level, you know, they're with us now. You know, everything's with us now. So they're not really separate. I don't think they're separate. So maybe I'll leave that there. I mean, for now.
Pete, I love that the journey you just took us on, and how many losses you've gone through, and yet how much you've gained, right, in their absence. I think that's the part that I think we are confronted with. It's that shift, and a lot of times people feel like it's a hole, but in its place, I believe if you approach it from the essential nature of death, you gain something from somebody when they leave you. Because I agree with you, I never feel like they're gone. They're always around on some level. And you know, my father, I was with him when he died, and I would say it was a very beautiful transition. It was hard to see him go, but if I were to, you know, when I'm to die, not if, but when I'm to die, I would love the way he chose to die. He died with everybody that he loved around him, listening to his favorite song and being held. He was a cowboy, so the song he passed away to was "Mama, Don't Let Your Babies Grow Up to Be Cowboys." And it just, there was so much light in the room. It was like he was shimmering. And of course, you know, I was sad that he went, but every day, like the day he was dying, the hospice had been saying that it was going to be, you know, that he had some time. And I went outside, and I hadn't been going outside. I'd been pretty much at his bedside, and I sat outside for a minute, and I saw a white butterfly, and I knew it was time. And I told my family, we've got to gather around him. He's dying. And my mom went and wrote something to him, and we all gathered around him. And after he transitioned, every single day after that, a white butterfly would come and you know, go to his barn or follow me, even not at the house, even at the beach. When we went to the beach, it went on for probably, I'd say, 10 days. And then I was with my mom during that transition. And I decided it was time for me to go back to Los Angeles, because I had been paying for a life that I wasn't living. I was living in Washington with them, helping my dad and my mom. And the day I arrived in my driveway, there was a white butterfly. So it really, every time, like my mom's surprise birthday, a white butterfly, I mean, it's like, it just happens. He appears, and it's so beautiful.
I am still here. Yeah. I mean, it is beautiful. We had so many, obviously. I mean, to be honest, I'll be about half hour to an hour expressing very similar experiences that you have had, you know, when my, different things. Funny enough, my sister of 12, when she passed about 12 years ago, I had a butterfly then. With my mother, a white unicorn of all things, you know, and then, yeah, I know, white unicorn. And I used to have a bit of an issue. White unicorn, really? And then there she does present herself as a white unicorn. I mean, really, Mum? Come on. So it's quite amazing. So, you know, I won't go into too much detail, but I've got so much beautiful stories around them passing. And so I don't see a loss. I see a gain, you know. If anything, you know, I can sense them more. However, we have to do the work to be able to get to that more, whether we call it empathic state, and not to get too caught up in the everyday distractions, you know. And Sabina was saying, yeah, and work out how we can be more in life in the moment, you know, and be more receptive and in the now. Because if we're worrying about the future, we're still stuck in the past, you know. And of course, we could say there is lots of things to potentially worry about, but you do what you can do, and then we just got to stop the worry nonsense, because that's a big issue in everyone's life in terms of illnesses, you know, combined with food. So yeah, I'm going to jump out now because I'm.
Thank you, Pete. Sabina, I know that you were with your father when he transitioned. Would you mind sharing kind of your thoughts on that? Oh, you need to unmute yourself.
Yes, my dad transitioned on Thanksgiving last year, and I was not physically with him, but my sister was with him in this senior citizen home where he was. And she put me and my son on the iPad. So yes, I was with him. He actually saw me and my son, and I know that I could tell from his expression and his eyes that he recognized us. So I was with him in spirit and on a visual. And I was with him for 5 hours, me and my son, and I would talk to him because at the beginning, he was very disturbed, very nervous. And I think I noticed the end is coming. So he got a little scared. He was like, like these sounds, and like holding on to his, like really, I felt he was kind of panicking. So I just started to talk to him. I said, Dad, it is okay. You're not alone. I'm here. Nate is here. Alexandra, my sister, we're all with you. The whole family is with you, and you're not alone. So it's okay to let go. You know, you can finally be free from this heavy body, and it's time to fly free. And it's okay. You know, whatever is coming will be so beautiful. So I kept talking to him, and I noticed he got a little more quiet. He calmed a little bit down. And my sister also was kind of panicking, saying, oh my God, what are we gonna do? And I said, just be there for him. And she started then also talking to him. It's okay, Daddy. It's okay. We're all here. The whole family is with you. And it's time to be free. You know, I would talk to him, and then eventually after 5 hours, he would calm down, and then he would just look at me and my son. And there was a peace. I noticed there was a peace in his eyes, and then he closed his eyes and he went to sleep. And then my sister was with him. He was still sleeping for the rest of the day. And then at night she went to a hotel, actually. And then the next morning, she heard from the caretaker that he passed during the night. They looked at him at 3, he was still sleeping, and at 6, there was no more breath. So he passed between 3 and 6, but the last thing he looked at was me and my son on the iPad. So I know I was with him the moment he decided to go sleep peacefully, and then he passed during the sleep. So it was a really beautiful experience, and I got to really be there for him and support him in calming down. Also got my sister calming down, my son was also talking to him. So it was so nice to actually be a support to my dad. And I felt at peace. I went then to sleep because I'm 6 hours in a different time zone. But I knew that the next morning when I got the message, I knew that he was gone. Yeah.
That's an interesting perspective. It's interesting now that we can be connected through a computer, right? Whereas, and to be able to have that connection with your father when he's in another country and be able to be a part of that, even though I think that's such a beautiful blessing about the internet and that ability now to be connected to somebody, especially in such a very pivotal and important time for not only for him, but for your sister, for your son, for you to be able to be connected in that way. And for you to really seek to give him calm, because I can imagine that people's reactions, I think everybody has their own response to it, right? And I can imagine that if I were dying, I would pray that people were calm. I wouldn't want to be worried about everybody else. I would want a sense of peace as I transition. And I understand there's sadness and that we're human and we have our responses. But it would be so beautiful to go in peace in my home. That would be my, in my goal, or in the forest or wherever, on the beach somewhere. Doreet, can you talk? I see you on screen. If you, can you unmute yourself? Because we do see you.
Yes, I have unmuted myself just now.
Yay.
So going back to what stuck with me was something that Sabina said. She talked about we spend our lives whining and complaining. I love that word, whining, so much. And I think the way we spend our life is the way we'll die. And the same energy that is prevalent in all our interactions with ourselves is the interaction that will happen when we die, which is why Sabina's father was so terrified and so scared, because just based on the information that Sabina gave us for a few months now about his own life and the way his household, the way he ran his household, was based on a lot of fear. And so I'm not surprised that Sabina was the one to calm him down again, even although she was the one who seemed to have suffered so much from the chaos in the house, that she is the one who then left and separated herself, which is what we need to do all the time, and then was able to help him to make what we think or seems to have been a peaceful transition. So it's interesting because my first encounter with transitioning from this life into wherever we go next was with a cat, was through a cat. Now, I am incredibly fascinated by cats, and I think they see things we don't see, they hear things we don't hear, and they live on a different plane from us. And so I was always trying to learn from my cat constantly as a child, and I was a child at the time. And what the cat did, this was an outdoor cat because I refused to have the cat stuck into a house. I thought it was a wild animal. It needs to be out in the wild. And what the cat did, I came home from school and I knew something was going on. I didn't see the cat. It was always there when I returned home. And it wasn't there. And I looked everywhere and I couldn't find it. Then I panicked and I just rushed all over and looked. And was a vegetable garden at the back of our house. And I used to go, I used to go there and pick cucumbers and tomatoes and eat those when I first got home if they weren't already in the fridge waiting for me. And I went back there, and there was the cat lying exactly there. And I was furious with the cat, furious, because I thought, how could you not have told me? Why didn't you let me know? How did I not know this? And that was my first encounter, was fury and blaming the cat for not telling me or letting me know in advance. And after that, I decided as a child not to get this close to a cat ever again, because cats are independent. They go when they want to go, and they have absolutely no qualms of going at their own pace and time without letting us know. Of course, now as an adult, I understand differently, and I really admire them for that. I've seen a lot of dying, a lot, under very extreme attacks and whatnot. And so I see it very differently. But the one that really impacted me most, and I've spoken about it here before, was my mother when she transitioned, and that I never, ever was able to accept it. And I was in the deepest, darkest place that I never even knew I could go until I went to India. I was supposed to have gone to India anyway at the time, but I went home instead because she died suddenly. But she was supposed to have died before, and I ran home, and she didn't. She came right back into life, and everybody said, see, as soon as the prodigal daughter gets back, she's alive, she's well. She took me out to see a dance performance. She took me all these places that I should know that I love, and she was fine. And when we thought she was fine was when she left. So I was prepared for that from my cat, the suddenness of it, and from the sadness of everyone else that I grew up with around me, dying in terrorist attacks and whatnot. So, and I've always escaped them. I've always just escaped them, just incredibly so. So I've always been friends with death, and I welcome it. I think the way we live our lives has everything to do with our transitioning. The way we feel about ourselves has everything to do with that. And I think so. I've heard Sabina recount this before, and I was really glad to hear it again, of her going off into the ditch when she was driving. I think that was through the Alps, wasn't it, Sabina, last year? That was recent, wasn't it?
That was actually just here, close where I live, in the mountains in Hudson Valley, New York.
So it happened again?
No,
Because you
in
had
the
another
Alps.
encounter.
In the Alps, I was in the summer. I'm talking about in this. No, there was nothing occurring. But when I was in the winter here, there was a lot of ice and slush on the road and snow, and I couldn't do anything. My car lost complete control. But I was here in the mountain in Hudson Valley, New York.
Wow. And I know Hudson Valley very well. Wow. But didn't you have a close encounter last year too when you were driving between the Alps, from Switzerland to Italy?
Not a dangerous one. Only beautiful encounters with the mountains.
I thought you were driving a car that you weren't used to, and there was an issue at one point, no?
Well, the only issue was that the streets in Italy were extremely tight. So yes, it was scary, but not to the point that I faced death. It was just a scary experience being on these very small roads and having to go really steep down and then steep up again. So it was a scary experience, yes, but I didn't have this feeling I'm dying.
Oh, wow. Okay, great. Thank you.
I can't handle this. This is too much for me. That was more the experience. I'm not equipped for this. I need different skills.
Thank you for that. Yes, so I think that when we look at ourselves in life, the way we look at ourselves in life, we look at the same way when we leave. And, Lisa, you are looking extremely radiant today and just shining. And it's interesting because you spoke about your father when he was leaving, that he was shimmering. And that's exactly the word I would describe you with today. That the light, the glow that's coming off of you today, I'm thinking you look like you're shimmering. And then all of a sudden you use that word and boom, there it is. That's the word I was looking for. And so I think that if we live our lives like that, that's what we will also encounter when we make our transition. And the reason why I think death is so scary is because most of us have not lived our lives fully. We've not given ourselves permission to live our lives our way, the way that we wish to, the way that is authentic to us, and the way that really allows us to be fully present for ourselves. And when we've never had the experience of being fully present for ourselves, we will not be fully present for our transitioning either.
I love what you shared, Doreet. I think it would be interesting to, some people have talked about doing this, to have a memorial while they're alive and to witness that. I think there was a show I watched where a guy pretended he was dead and listened to what everybody had to say about him, and as a way of informing his own presence in his own life. But that's, I think, my takeaway with what happened with my father was that we're not guaranteed time. So I always want to tell people what I don't want to talk about them at their memorial or their funeral. I want to share the things I love about people while they're alive, to hear it. And when my father died, I threw a huge 70th surprise birthday for my mom because I wanted her to be showered with love in her life. And she said it was one of her favorite memories of whatever happened in her lifetime. She said, besides us, of course. But it was beautiful to do that for her, just to have everybody love up on her and let her know, because she's an incredible human being. And it just felt really good to give that to her, for her to know how much impact she has on the world around her, because she's one of those people that just really shines her light on other people. And I wanted her to feel how much impact that has on the people around her. So,
One of the things that I was thinking of when you were saying that, what reminded me of too, is that I don't go to funerals at all. I never go. I don't understand the need for it. And I live my life letting people know exactly how I feel and what I feel. And if I'm going to mourn, of course, to me, mourning, I will mourn my own way. But I think I don't also celebrate what people call birthdays. I just think it's living in the past. And why do you keep repeating the same thing over and over and over? What I do is I celebrate the sunrise, the sunset. Today, the skies I thought were glorious where we live in LA. I thought they were just stunning, and no chemtrails for a long time. I could actually see the sky and the clouds. That's what I celebrate. I celebrate regrowth in the tree that was actually cut down in front of my window. I think that I celebrate the things that are in the moment. I do not like staying in the past. I don't understand at all celebrating anniversaries. You may as well say, I would prefer if you celebrate every fight you ever had with your spouse. I don't see the difference between that and celebrating an anniversary. And I have nothing against people doing that. I just don't want them to force me to be included in that, because that doesn't make a difference in my life, nor do I see the value of it. What I wish to celebrate is the value of each person showing up at the moment they did in my life, in the way they showed up. And if I, for some reason, do not let them know the value that they brought into my life, then it's up to me to change that while they're here, or to accept that never was, that never happened. But I already know it, and I know on a soul level, they will also know it. I think celebrations are hacked up, and that what we need to do is live our life as a celebration instead. So feeling sad, celebrate that, because that's a feeling. And that's, you have to be alive to feel sadness. You have to be fully alive to fully feel sad. Feeling disconnected, feeling the need to be with oneself. These are the things I think we need to celebrate. And I think it's interesting that when somebody transitions, we throw a party. And I don't think the party is for that person, it's for us who have stayed behind. And I like that, and I'm into that. It's for those of us who have stayed behind to connect deeper, to connect stronger, and to realize that this person connected us all. That I like. That, yes, to throw a party like that. However, to sit there, bawl, and pretend that we are not also going to join this person very shortly. We're just hanging around a little bit afterwards, and just missing them so much, when they're probably even more present than they could ever have been before, while they were stuck in this very dense body on this dense dimension. I think we need to rethink and relook at death. So I wanted to, I don't know if I can put this quote up, but there's a quote that I really love from Rumi. Oh, it went up on the screen. Okay, it says, "Die happily and look forward to taking up a new and better form, like the sun. Only when you set in the west can you rise in the east." I so like that. Back to you, Lisa.
Oh, anything by Rumi just fills my heart with just such illumination and peace. What a wise sage he was. His wisdom is still permeates and felt throughout so many lifetimes. So I'm curious about what's going on with Pete. What are you thinking in terms of this conversation?
Can you hear me now? You can hear me? It's amazing. Like I say, I've got so much to share. It's beautiful. I remember an experience when I was 16, actually, which Doreet reminded me of in terms of celebrating death. It was so alien to me. I was watching the TV, and it still reminds me to this day. I can still remember it. I think it was New Orleans, and someone had died. They, maybe 100 people in the street with the grave. They're carrying the grave on their shoulders. Trumpets, saxophones, drums. It was just like a carnival, And I just, honestly, this is where my conditioning and my head was at. I just could not get my head around it. It took me many years to get my head around that, because, some of us are just surrounded by, let's just say, a certain dimension, third dimension, we could say, of death, And if that's all you know, and that's all what you've been potentially portrayed through movies, etc., and you haven't had the potential education or the experience to widen your education, should I say, or your imagination, then that's all what you're left with. So it's so beautiful coming from a very more dense, constipated, restricted kind of lifestyle, to come out of that, to actually have the difference, so I can reflect on where I've come from and to come out the other side of the tunnel, you could say. So one of my experiences I remember with my mum passing, I've never really wrote anything down, and like I mentioned, she had passed, and I got this white unicorn, and then I was getting all this information, and she was pressing upon me, I would say, to write down her life, but it was all coming out in like old English, And I had never done any real writing in my life up to that time, and it was like spoken word. Took me about 5 days, and she wanted me to read this at her wake, which I actually managed to do. But it was a very metaphoric kind of speech, should I say. And, there were points that I broke down, and it was beautiful. And what did it point to? It allured to, in my life, that it was the feminine that were dying. It was the feminine, and it showed a lot to me. And it showed that really, on some respects, our first child, or when I was 19, on a level, gave us an opportunity, which, I have received that opportunity many, many years ago. And then it's like they come in, I would say they come in like angels to a degree, a spirit coming in and with a purpose. And it's as if, can I wake this family up, And as well as sometimes you could see how certain members of the family potentially come in and know their time of death. And you could say whether they chose that to sacrifice to try and wake others up. So I see all this kind of interaction, and knowing astrology and seeing how it does all cross-reference and having so many experiences like that. And then you can potentially see certain people as scapegoats. However, we still all reiterate everything is perfect. That is true as well, And so I've witnessed this with my mum, my sisters, and in this, say, spoken word, it emphasized the fact that how many more women are going to have to pass before more us men. And then I started recognizing it's very global, and it's about Mother Earth as well, and it's not just men, but majority it's men ruled at the moment, unfortunately. So it really was a big awakening. So it was more for the males left in the family. I'm one of 2 other brothers, and it was just like I feel it was beautiful, because it was showing us, that we have an opportunity here, and we have a gift to wake up from, our more feminine, in my reality, that have passed. And then what I get to realize is, the feminine have been, I would say, put upon long time ago, because they're the most receptive, that we all come from feminine. So anyone who potentially wants to kind of rule will take out the mothers first, because we all come from mothers, and contaminate the mothers first. And so the children are contaminated and, traumatized, etc., and conditioned a certain way. So, I suppose my part is much respect to mothers, and my part as a male would be being as connected as I can and being accountable for my emotions. So women aren't playing out my emotions, and my children aren't playing out my emotions, and being accountable for my reactions, so they can be who they can truly be as well. And by me supporting myself, working on myself, give space for women to truly be themselves, and other people to truly be themselves if they choose to have the opportunity. And it's beautiful to meet other people doing that work. That's why, with all what we do in terms of the protocols we do, food was a big stepping stone for me. In the end, I had done the other dream work, esoteric work, breath work, astrology, Jin Shin. Okay, I'm going to carry on talking. I went off there. So that was I've had so many epic times, epic experiences. My sister, when she passed, I thought, the evening before her funeral, I'm thinking, oh, there's only a few little bits. And I'm sitting down eating my dinner. Then all of a sudden, she's next to me. Now, how trippy that may sound for people. And she's given me a whole, let's just say, she's requesting something of me. And I'm just having this dialogue for about 2 hours because it's quite a challenging request. And, you know, we would banter and it went on for 2 hours. So the next day I chose to take on, you know, this request, what she wanted at her funeral and what she didn't want at her funeral. So, you know, and people to this day could think, what was Pete doing, you know? However, it wasn't coming from a reactional space. It's coming from a very connected space and from a loving sister who could manage to get through to me to make sure a certain person wasn't at her funeral, which was really interesting, you know, and that could sound really bizarre. It could sound really bizarre, but so I've had many of them bizarre situations. So when we talk about death, you know, I have to be careful not to be around people who talk too much in a sad way about death, because you know, I will potentially leave the room or shift the conversation because that's not my experience. And if you're around that for too long, it can, let's just say, it can infiltrate a little bit, to be honest, because you know, you're not speaking your truth, you know, and people don't like to hear the truth and hear the, I'm going to say the depth, what I've experienced. And it sounds like the depth of what Doreet has experienced, and all of us have experienced here by having close ones pass away. But people tend to not want to hear that because on a level, you could say they're not ready, but they haven't really gone deep enough and looked at themselves. And really, we're too caught up in the ego, the materialistic, the, you know, attachment to so many things. So if we all started slowly picking away and working at that, you know, it doesn't go overnight. And but it does dissipate, and you know, you keep coming back to yourself and to your unique who imprint of you, who you are. Apparently everyone's imprint is uniquely different. How amazing is that? Anyway.
Thank you, Pete. That's beautiful about the imprint and your sister and the 2-hour conversation about what she wanted to bring into her celebration. Sabina, what is going on in terms of your thoughts as it relates to this conversation?
Yes, thank you, Pete, for all you shared. And I just want to piggyback on that. You mentioned attachment. And yes, you know, when we are attached to many different things, it will be very difficult thinking of death because we got to let go of all these attachments. That's why many people have a hard time just thinking of death. Or when it comes closer, they get scared because they have to let go of all of that. So the way to experience freedom is learn to let go of attachments, you know, at any moment, you know, not being attached to anything. And that can be hard, you know, because we have attachment to people, we have attachment to objects, we have attachment of even how we see ourselves, certain programs, certain identifications. And I think a lot of our pain comes from all these attachments and identification. This all like ties, you know, it's the energetic hooks, yeah, which keeps us very, very, it's a very dense energy. And when we learn to, I mean, that's a practice. It's a really spiritual practice, learning to let go of attachments, learning to let go even of how people see us, how people react to us, you know, how we're perceived, and letting go of all of that. That is, you know, that's the first step to freedom. And the more free we can be of all these attachments, the more easier it will be actually to face, okay, one day I gotta go and I can't take anything with me. I can't take no one and I can't take anything. So just enjoy the things you have, or the people in your life, or the objects, but knowing one day you cannot take them with you and being okay with that. And, you know, that takes, of course, some deep inner work. And in my life, for example, I moved many times, and each time I moved 10 times in 10 years. Each time I decided to let go of stuff, and it was a process. It was kind of hard to let go of certain things that have been with me for too long, like lots of clothes, books, objects. And every year every time I moved, I decided to let go of stuff, less things. I had a whole basement full of stuff, and then letting go of things. But every time I felt a freedom, and I realized I never needed it. And to this point, I have a storage room with stuff, and I've been carrying it from 10 homes, but most of it I will probably never look again, So it's like when we learn to let go, it's actually very freeing. And we all of us, we're attached to too many things, too many stories, too many people, too much ideas about ourselves. Yeah, we identify with a certain way of being. And when we learn to let go, that is really freedom, and you become lighter. You carry less luggage with you. And I mean, not just physical luggage, also emotional luggage, mental luggage. The mind becomes more free and uncluttered. And I think we have like 2 more minutes, so I'm leaving it as that.
Thank you, Sabina. I love what you shared about all the clutter that we bring into our life and how we really need to be aware that we're not taking any of it with us, and we might as well release as we go on our journey and allow. I think when we let go, so much more comes in. Doreet, what are your thoughts as we're closing the show? Doreet, you need to unmute.
So I'm thinking about what Sabina spoke about energetic hooks, and which is why every Saturday I have a fast day. For me, a fast means fasting from everything, including my own voice. Have a day of silence. I don't eat. I don't drink anything. And I just embrace silence because to me, that's letting go. Every Saturday, I think about what do I need to let go of energetically. Sometimes I do it physically, let go of something. I go through a closet or a cupboard and I let go that way. But there's always a letting go every Saturday. I think it's a practice, and we need to practice dying to whatever notion of ourselves we have. And all of a sudden, when you do that, in comes a much more joyful one and a much more, I think, celebrated one. I just want to close with Lao Tzu, who said, life is a series of natural and spontaneous changes. Don't resist them. That only creates sorrow. Let reality be reality. Let things flow naturally forward in whatever way they like.
It's beautiful. Well, I appreciate everybody's thoughts on death. I feel like I've learned so much from each of you. And to those that are watching, we appreciate you sharing this journey with us. We're so grateful for you and would love to hear your thoughts on death and share this with others, because I think the message is really, really important. Every one of us is guaranteed this. Nobody's immune. Nobody's immune to it. And I think the more we discuss it, the more I think we recognize how precious this journey is that we've been gifted with, and how important it is to really honor that and honor each other, because we're all just swimming towards home. So thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you to my beautiful colleagues and co-hosts, and thank you to everybody that does watch us.
Bye. Big
Goodbye.
love.